A small passenger plane crashes, leaving 9 survivors, but none of them feel lucky to be alive. The plane shatters into pieces, with both GPS and radio communication completely destroyed. For 600 miles in every direction, there's nothing but dense jungle. Even worse, something out there seems to be hunting them. Each night, another person dies. This isn't just survival, it's hell. Welcome to the newly released horror thriller, 9 Bodies in a Mexican Morgue. Aboard a small passenger plane from Guatemala to the US, one traveler notices something strange about their flight path. The flight attendant explains that due to a severe storm along the main route, the pilot took a detour, adding about an hour to their flight. At first, no one seems worried, until the plane suddenly shakes violently, the GPS malfunctions, fuel runs dangerously low, and the radio cuts out completely. The pilot seems to realize what's coming. He lowers altitude and records a final message on his phone. When the engines die, the plane turns into a falling chunk of metal, plummeting toward the ground. Luckily, they weren't flying too high. The passenger cabin remains mostly intact, except for the flight attendant, who's gravely injured after failing to buckle her seatbelt. Kevin quickly realizes her spine is broken. There's no saving her. Zach suggests checking on the pilot. After forcing open the cockpit door, they find him impaled through the chest by a tree branch, barely breathing. Kevin pulls the branch out to help, but suddenly the cabin fills with the smell of burning metal. The engine's on fire. A man in a blue shirt rushes outside, not to put out the fire, but to grab his luggage. Fortunately, the fire isn't too bad, and the passengers manage to extinguish it. Someone snaps, "What's in that suitcase that's worth more than your life?" The unconscious pilot is carried out. His abdomen is punctured, and he could die at any moment, but with no signal, they can't call for help. A middle-aged couple stays oddly optimistic, convinced that rescue will come soon, yet as they chat, their eyes keep darting toward the man's mysterious suitcase, completely unaware of the danger creeping closer. A younger couple spots something moving in the trees. The woman frowns, everyone's confused, and no one even knows where they are. Sonia, an avid traveler, guesses they're somewhere in the Mexican rainforest. With the GPS down and 600 miles of jungle around, no rescue team will find them anytime soon. As panic spreads, Zach, the black man, steps up to rally everyone. They must stick together if they want to survive. He introduces himself, Zach, an insurance investigator. His job makes him observant and analytical. When the crash happened, he was the first to check on the pilot, knowing the man was their best chance at survival. Before this trip, Zach had been investigating an arson for insurance scam. His family was targeted in retaliation, so he took this flight to lay low, and part of him even suspects the crash might have been sabotage. Of course, everyone dismisses his theory. They're in a real disaster, not some conspiracy movie. Next, a bespectacled man introduces himself as Kevin, a former surgeon. No wonder he immediately knew the flight attendant couldn't be saved. Now, he runs a medical equipment business and was flying to the US for a supply deal. Sonia, the long-haired traveler, often journeys the world, but when asked about her job or past, her demeanor shifts. She flatly refuses to answer. The man who risked his life to save his luggage is Carlos, a professional wrestler. He values honor above all, and this trip was supposed to take him to a major competition. Along with them are a newlywed couple on their honeymoon, and a middle-aged couple who run a small countryside inn. The husband suffers from heart disease and must take his medicine on time to survive. Including the unconscious, wounded pilot, there are 9 survivors in total. Zach naturally takes the lead, assigning tasks to everyone. They gather whatever supplies remain from the wreck. The water supply can only last them about 3 days. Seeing the flight attendant's body starting to stiffen, Zach insists they move it outside before it attracts insects. He and Kevin find a small hollow in the ground, the perfect spot for a burial, but before they can begin, someone rushes over shouting, "The pilot's awake." Zach becomes agitated, desperate for answers. The pilot, bleeding from a stomach wound, can barely speak. He gasps out only a few words, "It wasn't me." Zach recalls Kevin used to be a doctor and asks if he can save the pilot. Kevin shakes his head. The wound requires surgery. But deep in the jungle, there are no tools, no sterile equipment, not even a scalpel or disinfectant. Having been out of practice for years, Kevin feels helpless. His pessimism discourages everyone, and they reluctantly give up the idea of operating. Lisa, the middle-aged woman, prepares a simple meal with the plane's remaining food. After eating, the group's morale improves slightly. Sonia suggests climbing the nearby mountain. There might be cell signal up there. Carlos adds that if food runs low, they can hunt in the forest, and fresh water can be found almost anywhere if filtered. Even without news from a rescue team, they all try to stay positive. Only the pilot's weak coughing breaks the silence, dampening everyone's spirits. All eyes turn to Kevin, the only doctor among them. Under pressure, he finally decides to try surgery. Following his instructions, they split up to gather medical supplies. The first aid kit contains some disinfectant and bandages. Sonia finds a bottle of liquor and clean water in the wreck, while Davies, the bearded man, brings back the most crucial item, a scalpel. Kevin sterilizes the tools with liquor. With no anesthesia, the pilot screams in agony throughout the operation, but miraculously, it goes well. Kevin exhales in relief. He tells them the pilot is out of immediate danger, but infection could still be deadly, for now, though things seem to be improving. The newlyweds remain anxious. What if wild animals attack? When will rescue arrive? Suddenly, darkness sweeps past the window. Amy, the young wife, spots a shadow moving through the forest. Could someone else be out there? Meanwhile, the middle-aged couple remains suspicious of Carlos and his precious suitcase. When he steps away, Lisa sneaks over to peek inside, but it's locked with a code. Night falls quickly. One by one, the survivors fall asleep, except Dan, who stays awake watching the forest through the window, unaware that Carlos is still outside training. In the darkness, a shadowy figure approaches, picks up a jacket, and drapes it over the pilot's head. By morning, when the group awakens, they find his lifeless body, eyes wide open. Kevin is puzzled. The wound wasn't infected, and there's no sign of internal bleeding. So why did the pilot die? The only possible explanation is post-surgery complications. Everyone feels guilty. They should have kept watch last night. Now, another person is dead. Amy suggests burying the pilot beside the flight attendant. The others disagree, insisting they wait for rescue so the bodies can be properly returned to their families. Naively, they still believe rescue is coming, unaware that death is creeping closer with every hour. That's the end of episode 1. The opening and closing scenes also flash forward 9 days later, showing the military airlifting 9 bodies and launching an investigation. Are these corpses the same passengers? Episode 2 holds the answer. A man tosses his shoe into a swampy pond. Moments later, it sinks, as if something beneath the water dragged it down. The group turns pale with fear, unaware that far worse terrors lurk in the forest. Continuing from the previous episode, after the pilot's sudden death, Kevin is riddled with guilt. As the weather grows hotter, they must dispose of the body quickly. As Kevin and Zach carry the body out, they fail to notice the pilot's phone slipping from his pocket. Dan quietly picks it up. Seeing his wife's suspicious gaze, he explains, "It's the pilot's only belonging, maybe we can return it to his family." Then, using the excuse of needing the bathroom, he slips into the woods. Meanwhile, Zach and Kevin lay the pilot's body beside the flight attendant's. Her corpse, dead for 2 days, is already starting to rot. Kevin wants to bury them to prevent disease, but Zach argues they should wait. What if the rescue team arrives and needs the bodies? Staring at the lifeless bodies, Kevin sighs. "If I'd known this would happen, I'd never have operated." Years ago, he'd been sued for prescribing the wrong medication to an allergic girl. The lawsuit bankrupted him, and his family left. Seeing Kevin's despair, Zach reassures him, now's not the time for guilt. What matters is finding a way out of here. Soon after they leave, Dan sneaks back and cuts off one of the pilot's fingers. He plans to use the pilot's fingerprint to unlock the phone. After searching through it, he finds a locked app requiring a password. Meanwhile, the middle-aged couple whisper quietly. Lisa believes the pilot didn't die from complications, he was murdered. She recalls a hospital patient who suffocated to death, face darkened, eyes bloodshot, just like the pilot. Davies is skeptical. Who'd commit murder out here? But Lisa insists there are plenty of motives. Scarce food and water can turn anyone into a killer. As they talk, rustling comes from the bushes. Lisa suspects someone's eavesdropping and quickly ends the conversation. Elsewhere, Sonia approaches Amy. Having noticed the couple doesn't act like honeymooners, pressed for the truth, Amy hesitates, then confesses their relationship is complicated. Amy is from a wealthy family. Dan was her chauffeur. They secretly married and ran away together to hide it from her parents. Sonia falls silent. She doesn't know what to say, so she simply returns to the wreck to tidy up. Davies spots a long metal case and quickly claims it's his. Meanwhile, Carlos stumbles upon a GPS transmitter inside the wreckage. After checking it, they realize it still works, only the wiring is damaged. If they carry it up to higher ground, it might send a signal for help. Hope reignites. Hearing that Carlos's father was an electrician, they trust he can repair the device using spare wires. But hauling the transmitter up the mountain will take at least half a day. Zach decides they'll rest for the night and start the climb at dawn. Lisa points out they only have 11 bottles of water left, and their food is nearly gone. The most urgent task now is finding more supplies. Zach claps his hands and announces they'll explore the forest after lunch, unaware that from this moment on, strange events are about to unfold. That afternoon, while resting, Amy catches a glimpse of someone hiding in the bushes, but when she looks again, there's nothing there. Davies experiences something stranger. His heart medication, kept in his suitcase, is missing. Only a few pills remain in his pocket. Lisa assumes he misplaced them and goes searching around. Meanwhile, Sonia checks the plane's remaining supplies and finds that half of the distilled water is gone. Zach immediately suspects someone's hoarding it. To prevent another theft, he locks the storage cabinet with electrical wire. After spending a full day together, Sonia starts to see Zach as honest and dependable, maybe even the one who'll survive to the end, so she opens up about her secret. It turns out Sonia is actually an investigative journalist who travels the country exposing major criminal organizations. After resting, the group heads out to search for food and water. Along a narrow path, they spot blue mushrooms. Sonia immediately recognizes them as deadly. They grow only in damp, humid areas, meaning water must be nearby. Sure enough, not long after, Dan finds a small pond. He starts to take off his shoes to bathe, but Carlos stops him, warning that it could be the mouth of an underground cave. No one knows what might be lurking below. To test it, Zach tosses Dan's shoe into the pond. Within seconds, it's yanked underwater by something unseen. Everyone freezes in fear, sweating, while Sonia guesses it might be a carnivorous fish. Just then, a gunshot echoes through the forest. The group rushes over, only to find Davies. The long metal case he took from the plane turns out to be a hunting rifle. Lisa, who's run a guest house for years, knows the importance of self-protection. After losing her husband's medicine and witnessing the pilot's death, she decides to use the weapon to assert control. Davies quickly proves useful, downing several monkeys with just a few shots. Meanwhile, Sonia boils water from the pond over a campfire, ensuring everyone has something safe to drink. Lisa, handling logistics, prepares a special dinner using monkey meat and tomato sauce. Davies eats heartily, while Amy can barely swallow a bite. To avoid waste, Davies finishes her portion too. Mid-meal, Zach suddenly remembers where the meat came from and grows curious about Carlos's suitcase, hoping it doesn't contain anything dangerous. To put everyone at ease, Carlos finally opens his case. Inside is just a simple mask, yet to him, it means everything. It represents his wrestling identity. Losing it would mean losing his honor. As night falls, the survivors drift off one by one. Only Davies occasionally groans, feeling an odd discomfort. Unaware, lights flicker faintly inside the wreckage. A shadowy figure finds a satellite phone in the forest. When he answers, a similar phone rings inside a distant mansion, answered by a stern-faced woman. "Yes, is that you?" The next morning, Zach wakes to shouting. Lisa has found her husband vomiting violently. Kevin rushes over and concludes it's food poisoning. Coincidentally, there are some emetic pills in the plane's storage cabinet. Amy runs to fetch them, but the cabinet's wired shut. Within minutes, Davies' heart condition flares up again, and he stops breathing. Lisa breaks down, convinced her husband was murdered, poisoned by the same blue mushrooms they saw yesterday. The motive, she cries, is obvious. Fewer survivors mean more resources and a better chance for the killer to live. To make her case stronger, Lisa reveals the truth. The pilot didn't die from illness or complications, but because someone suffocated him by covering his mouth and nose. Kevin tries to respond, but Lisa suddenly recalls she and Davies had discussed the pilot's death just the day before. Maybe the killer overheard them and murdered Davies to silence him. The group falls silent, a chill running down their spines. If Lisa is right, then the killer is among them. Sonia wanders back to the plane, devastated for locking the supply cabinet. Zach breaks the door open, spotting the emetic pills inside. He comforts her, saying that with Davies' heart condition, even timely medicine might not have saved him. Then Zach remembers Davies had eaten Amy's portion of dinner. Could it be that the real target was Amy all along? While they're discussing, Dan hands Amy the pilot's phone. Apparently, before the crash, the pilot had recorded a farewell message for his loved ones. The recording is in Spanish, so Carlos steps in to translate for everyone. "I don't think I can make it any longer. Even if the plane lands safely, I'll still die. They won't let me live. You have to be careful too." When the message ends, everyone is speechless. Lisa's theory suddenly makes terrifying sense. The deaths of the pilot and Davies weren't accidents. Could the real killer be hiding among them? 9 survivors remain stranded in a desolate tropical jungle, but to their horror, each passing day claims another life. By the 4th day, 3 people are dead: the heavy-set man, the pilot, and the flight attendant. Tension grips the camp. Everyone feels the piercing stare of an unseen watcher. Newlywed Amy tries to comfort Lisa, urging her not to grieve too much. It was an accident, she says softly. Lisa laughs bitterly, mocking Amy's innocence. My husband didn't die by accident, he was murdered, and the killer is right here, among us. She points fingers one by one, Zach the insurance investigator who lies easily, Kevin the doctor who botched the pilot's surgery, Carlos the quiet wrestler hiding secrets, Sonia the mysterious woman who knew about the poison, and Dan, Amy's husband, a rich girl marrying her driver. Lisa scoffs, that story never ends well. Amy snaps back, insisting that her husband truly loves her. Lisa smirks, you don't know a thing about love. The words hit Amy hard, cutting deep into her heart. Lisa walks into the forest to clear her head but freezes when she sees the same shadowy figure again. This time, it's clearly a man wearing a hood. She turns abruptly, and finds Dan standing there, curiously asking what she told his wife. Amy hesitates, then decides to keep her suspicions to herself. Meanwhile, Carlos finally completes the antenna for the GPS transmitter. Once it's mounted on the highest peak, it could send out a rescue signal. When it comes to deciding who'll make the climb, arguments break out. After so many deaths, no one dares to go alone. Lisa stirs the pot, heightening suspicion. In the end, Zach stays behind to guard the camp, while Carlos, Kevin, and Sonia are chosen to climb, 3 people to watch one another, ensuring no one acts on dark impulses. As they trek through the jungle, Carlos pops a piece of gum into his mouth and tosses the wrapper away. Sonia recognizes it instantly. It's the same gum missing from the plane's supplies. The thief must be Carlos. She keeps silent, choosing not to confront him. When they reach a steep cliff, she volunteers to help him carry the transmitter, just in case. Under the blazing sun, they climb mountain after mountain. Near the summit, Sonia slips, nearly plunging off the cliff. Kevin grabs her just in time, but the transmitter gets stuck on a rocky ledge. Knowing the transmitter is their only hope, Sonia risks her life, reaching out to grab it as Carlos and Kevin lock arms to pull her back up. After that ordeal, trust among the trio grows stronger. Had any one of them betrayed the others, the mission would have failed. At last, they reach the highest peak, but their phones still have no signal. All hope now rests on Carlos's transmitter. Once the antenna is secured, the transmitter lights up, signaling an active broadcast. Carlos smiles, rescue should arrive soon. As dusk falls, they start the journey back to camp. Down at the base, Zach approaches Lisa while she's out hunting. Still on edge, she glares at him and warns coldly, stay at least 2 meters away from me. Zach's tone is sincere. He pleads with Lisa to put aside her hostility. In a situation like this, they have to stay united if they want to survive. Lisa nods but drops a chilling revelation. Amy once told her that besides the survivors in camp, someone else is out there, watching them. Meanwhile, Dan keeps pressing his wife. What did Lisa tell you? Amy stays silent, suddenly remembering something. Dan once said he was working on a book, yet she's never seen him write a single word. Caught in a lie, Dan's temper flares. You think I'm lying to you? He growls. Terrified, Amy blurts out what Lisa had told her. Enraged, Dan shouts, so you believe a stranger over your own husband? Amy reels from the yelling, her head throbbing with pain. She asks Dan to fetch her medicine from the plane. Their exchange reveals Amy has been taking medication regularly. While Dan is gone, she peeks into his wallet and finds dozens of business cards, each with a different name and occupation, just like those carried by professional con artists. Amy's heart shatters. She says nothing, but in her mind, everything starts connecting. The man she just married suddenly feels like a complete stranger. Dan, on the other hand, drops all pretense. Ignoring Zach's attempts to calm him, he storms into the plane, grabs the bottle of alcohol once used for sterilizing, and starts drinking straight from it. Unable to bear it, Amy flees into the forest, sobbing in solitude. Suddenly, the hooded man appears again, but when she turns around, he's gone. Just then, Dan finds her. Amy, shaken, tells him about the hooded figure who's been stalking her since the crash. Dan doesn't believe her. You are hallucinating, he says dismissively. That's the last straw for Amy. She pulls out the stack of business cards and shouts, then explain these. Who are you really? Dan stammers, searching for an excuse, but every word he says only makes Amy more certain everything about him is a lie. Meanwhile, Sonia's team returns from the mountain. Hearing that the signal transmitter worked fills the group with hope. Lisa's roasted dinner is ready. Kevin approaches the feuding couple and says gently, whatever it is, handle it after you eat. Night falls, and it's clear no rescue team will arrive until morning. They'll have to spend yet another night here. As the others fall asleep, Dan lies awake, staring into the dark. Carlos, as usual, slips away to train in solitude. During a short break, he replays one of his old matches. his mind drifts back to that night, roaring crowds, blinding lights, pure adrenaline. In daily life, Carlos is quiet and calm, but once he puts on his wrestling mask, he transforms into a warrior god in the eyes of his fans. Inside the ring, he's nothing like his real self. The louder the crowd cheers, the wilder he becomes. But in that fateful match, his opponent outweighed him by 10 kilos. Carlos was slammed hard to the mat and blacked out instantly. When the video ends, his phone dies. Carlos shrugs and unwraps a stolen chocolate bar, his secret energy boost. One thought burns in his mind: to avenge that defeat, he'd do anything, even things against his conscience. Finishing his second routine, Carlos senses someone behind him. He turns and freezes. A man dressed in black stands there, wearing his wrestling mask. Suddenly, Carlos feels a cold sting in his abdomen, the same sensation he'd felt the day he was defeated in the ring. He collapses instantly, but this time he never wakes up again. The next morning, Carlos is nowhere to be found. After searching the entire area with no sign of him, Lisa blurts out, "He's been murdered." The air turns icy. As Zach suggests widening the search area, Kevin raises a far more chilling question: why hasn't the rescue team arrived yet? What they don't know is that the transmitter on the mountain has been sabotaged, its antenna wire deliberately cut. Down below, the survivors pair off to search. Zach stays behind, recalling Amy's warning that someone is secretly watching their every move. He suspects something valuable is hidden inside the plane, but even after he and Sonia tear the place apart, they find nothing. The killer's motive becomes more confusing than ever. Not long after, the search teams return empty-handed. No Carlos, no rescue team. Kevin suspects the transmitter malfunction and decides to climb back up with Sonia to check. Meanwhile, the others nap in the shade. Zach pretends to sleep, then quietly slips into the forest, unaware that Lisa is watching his every move. Amy, half asleep, hears a faint whisper calling her name. Trembling, she picks up a burning stick and follows the sound. Suddenly, the hooded man emerges from the shadows. As he raises a gun, Amy panics and drives the burning stick straight into his chest. Then she realizes in horror, it's Dan, her husband. Meanwhile, Kevin and Sonia stop halfway up the mountain to rest. Not far away, a swarm of crows circles above the trees. Alarmed, they change direction and head toward the source. Eventually, they find Carlos's corpse. Returning to camp with the grim news, they learn Amy has stabbed her husband, making her the prime suspect. After being treated, Dan defends her desperately. He explains that as a child, Amy witnessed a terrorist attack. A man in a hood shot her teacher right in front of her. Since then, she's suffered from severe trauma and depends on medication to stay calm. But his explanation doesn't clear her name. If anything, it paints her as mentally unstable and dangerous. If Davies and the pilot's deaths could still be considered accidents, Carlos's battered body leaves no doubt of foul play. Sonia wonders aloud, if it wasn't Amy, then who? Zach's mind goes elsewhere. What's the killer's motive? He has no idea that hidden inside the plane's upper compartment lies a massive stash of drugs. The flight was a smuggling run all along. Someone might be killing everyone to claim the contraband for themselves. Amy believes the killer might not be one of them, which is possible, but if the murderer is indeed among them, the most suspicious person is Dan. Perhaps Dan knew about the smuggling all along, or discovered it after the crash. Still, every survivor has acted suspiciously in one way or another. For now, only Lisa's blunt honesty and Amy's naivety make them seem the least likely suspects. That's the end of episode 3. Continuing with episode 4, 9 survivors remain stranded deep in the tropical jungle. Each passing day brings another mysterious death. By day 6, 4 people have already died. Ever since the wrestler Carlos's brutal death, fear spreads like a virus. Each survivor could be the killer or the next victim. 2 days ago, they set up a rescue transmitter on the mountain, but no one has come. There's no doubt now, someone sabotaged it. The only ones who went up there were Sonia, Carlos, and Kevin, and Carlos is already dead. Zach warns Sonia to be wary of Kevin. She snaps back, "Funny, he told me to watch out for you." Clearly, trust among them has completely collapsed. Meanwhile, Kevin quietly probes Dan. While dressing his wound, he notices a tattoo on Dan's shoulder and asks, "What's this about?" Dan casually says it's from his old gang days. Kevin recognizes it immediately, a forced tattoo, given to convicts. His expression turns to disgust. Dan explodes, lunging at him in rage. Hearing the commotion, the others rush in to break up the fight. Kevin's face is bruised and swollen, but he refuses to expose Dan's secret. Just then, Lisa makes a grim announcement. The bullets are gone, stolen, only one round remains in the gun. She believes someone wants them all to starve or die in fear. To prove his innocence, Dan confesses to Amy he once served time for fraud. The tattoo is from prison. He admits he approached her for her money, but swears that now his love is real. The group stands silent. Despite Dan's pleas, no one believes a con man's words. Meanwhile, Lisa sneaks off into the forest, only to be caught by Sonia. Distrustful of everyone else, she decides to confide in Sonia, the only one she still believes. Last night, before Carlos died, Lisa whispers, "Zach went into the forest alone and stood here for a long time." As a former innkeeper used to reading people, Lisa is convinced Zach is lying and hiding something. That night, a storm rolls in. The group takes shelter inside the cramped plane. The tension is suffocating. As they grumble about the heat, water starts dripping from above. Sonia shines her flashlight upward. The ceiling has been tampered with. Zach acts fast. Remembering his earlier suspicions, he pries open the panel. A bag of white powder falls to the floor. Dan recognizes it instantly. Drugs. Zach, drawing on his investigator instincts, estimates the stash to be worth over $3 million. Sonia speculates that the airline is just a front for drug smuggling, disguising shipments as passenger flights. That would explain why they were targeted. The company can't risk survivors knowing the truth. As everyone argues, no one notices Amy's terrified expression. She sees the hooded man again. By the time they turn to look, she's gone. Dan panics and runs into the storm to find her. Kevin insists on joining, but Zach warns it's too dangerous. No one listens. In seconds, everyone rushes out into the storm. Thunder cracks, rain pounds the ground. Amy follows the hooded figure through the dark, and as he turns, a glint of steel flashes in his hand. Just then, Lisa appears, holding the hunting rifle. She shouts at Amy to run back and get help, then aims her gun at the hooded man, ordering him to drop the knife. Suddenly, a flash of lightning cuts across the sky. When the light fades, the man is gone. Before Lisa can react, he's right behind her. She struggles fiercely, trying to rip off his mask, but her strength fades. Lisa, the strongest of them all, is dead. The group gathers around her body, accusing one another in panic. What now? Someone yells, "Do we just wait for the killer to pick us off one by one?" Zach steps in, trying to calm them. "We need to stick together," he urges. "Someone here will do anything for that stash, even kill." Sonia nods, then takes a deep breath. "I used to be one of them," she admits, "a drug addict." She tells them how her boyfriend overdosed and died. That was the day she realized how monstrous drugs could be. This trip was supposed to be her escape from that nightmare. "But I won't forgive the people behind this," she says coldly. "I know who they are." Then she reaches into her pocket and pulls out several bullets. "I found these hidden in the woods." She raises the gun and points it at Zach. Earlier that morning, following Lisa's tip, she went to the spot where Zach often sneaked off. The rain had washed away the soil, revealing what he'd hidden: bullets, a gun, and a satellite phone. Realizing there's no use lying, Zach confesses he's an undercover agent from the Anti-Narcotics Bureau, sent to investigate the airline's smuggling operations. The group hesitates. Zach tells Sonia to grab his wallet from the cave for proof, but when Kevin opens it, there's only cash inside, no ID, no badge. Zach freezes. He insists someone must have stolen his credentials. As for taking Lisa's bullets, he did it for protection, knowing one of them was a killer. Kevin looks conflicted. If that satellite phone works, he says, we can call for help right now. Sonia shakes her head. I already tried. Without the password, it's useless, just a brick. Everyone turns to Zach. He sighs in frustration. That phone isn't mine, someone's setting me up. Dan, furious, snatches the gun from Sonia and points it at Zach. Chaos erupts. Kevin intervenes, shouting, killing him won't help. He doesn't know the password. Eventually, they tie Zach to a tree and regroup. Amy volunteers to hunt for food. She used to shoot at a local range. Meanwhile, Sonia can't stop thinking about Zach. Torn between fear and doubt, she returns to see him, a man she once trusted. Zach grows agitated, warning her she's in danger. Dan's an ex-con, he says urgently, and Kevin, his behavior last night before Lisa died, something's off. If I'm tied up here, he warns, you might be next. Sonia shakes her head in disbelief. You're the killer, she snaps. Why else would you lie to us from the start? She demands the satellite phone's password, but Zach insists again. I swear, it's not mine. Sonia sighs and walks away, but Dan isn't done. He wants to torture Zach for the truth. No one volunteers, so he suggests they draw lots to decide. The unlucky one chosen is Kevin. Sonia refuses to sit still. She decides to climb the mountain to check the signal transmitter again. Dan and Amy agree to join her. With so few survivors left, they know, without unity, death is inevitable. and in everyone's eyes, Zach is still the prime suspect. In truth, Kevin thinks the same, but as a doctor, he hesitates to harm anyone. He asks Zach to reveal the satellite phone password, promising no one will touch him if he cooperates. Zach keeps insisting, "The phone isn't mine." Kevin's patience breaks. He punches Zach repeatedly, blood spilling from his mouth, yet Zach says nothing. Kevin's face hardens. He pulls out a surgical scissor, and when Zach still refuses to talk, he cruelly rips out one of his toenails. Zach's screams echo through the valley. Truly, when a doctor turns savage, he's more terrifying than any killer. Meanwhile, up on the mountain, Sonia and the others reach the summit. She discovers the transmitter's power cable has been unplugged. After reconnecting it, the signal light turns green. The device is working again. At the same time, inside the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA in the U.S., a senior officer receives an urgent report. The locator signal from the missing plane has been detected. That means there are survivors, but the signal originates deep within the Mexican jungle, and it's an outdated analog type, making rescue operations extremely difficult. Yet that's not the most troubling part. Records reveal that both the flight crew and several passengers had prior charges related to drug use. Investigators trace the airline and discover it's merely a front company, one that's never operated a legitimate flight. Cheap tickets, fake manifests, everything points to the airline being a cover for a massive drug smuggling operation. When confronted, the airline executive shrugs. "If you've got proof, sue us," he says coldly. But since the crash occurred in Mexican territory, the U.S. has no jurisdiction to investigate. During this exchange, it becomes clear the female investigator is actually Zach's wife. She confirms that Zach works for the Anti-Narcotics Bureau, proving everything he said was true. Back in the Mexican jungle, Zach regains consciousness, still bound to the tree. Through blurry vision, he sees a shadowy figure approaching with a knife. That's the end of episode 4. It seems Zach can now be ruled out as the killer, but whether he lives or dies remains uncertain. One thing's for sure, the murderer is still among them. In previous episodes, the pilot's farewell video hinted at a hidden truth. Now, with all the clues combined, it's clear he was being controlled by a drug cartel, forced to fly contraband. His final words, "They won't let me live," say it all. There was a cartel agent aboard the plane, planted to monitor the pilot, and that man is the true killer. The final showdown begins, a deadly werewolf game in the jungle. The hidden killer is about to be unmasked. Undercover agent Zach, after being caught hiding stolen bullets, has now become the prime suspect in the string of murders. As night falls and the others sleep, a shadowy figure with a dagger creeps toward Zach. He looks up and realizes it's Sonia, the field reporter. But Zach doesn't flinch. He's certain she's not here to kill him. Sonia's voice trembles as she asks, "How can you prove you're not the killer?" Zach calmly replies, "If I were the killer, I would have shot everyone on the very first night after the crash." His logic is flawless. He points out that only 5 survivors remain. Dan and Amy form one pair. If Zach dies, Sonia will be completely alone. Finally, Sonia gives in. She uses her dagger to cut Zach free, not because she fully trusts him, but because she can't stand seeing him suffer any longer. The next morning, Sonia pretends nothing happened. Kevin informs the group that Zach has escaped. Panic spreads immediately. Even if Zach isn't the killer, yesterday's torture might push him toward revenge, and since his rescuer is still among them, distrust tears the group apart. Dan, furious, orders Sonia and Kevin to stay away. Sonia pleads, "If we don't stick together, none of us will survive." Dan scoffs, "That's exactly what Carlos and Lisa said, and look where that got them, dead." Sonia sighs, realizing Kevin is her only possible ally, but then Kevin pulls out the rope that had bound Zach. The clean, smooth cut could only have been made by Sonia's dagger. She's instantly ostracized, the new prime suspect. Luckily, she still has Zach's pistol for protection. Meanwhile, Zach wanders alone in the dense forest. He doesn't dare return to camp, searching instead for shelter. Gazing up at the towering trees, a sense of dread creeps over him. Back at camp, Dan and Amy wait for rescue. They'd already repaired the locator device with Sonia. By now, the rescue team should have arrived. Amy finally speaks, her voice trembling. "If I could, I'd just go home to see my father again." It's clear, she wants to end this runaway life with Dan. Not far away, at a Mexican military base, the commander receives a message from the Civil Aviation Bureau. The missing plane's signal has been found deep in the jungle. After confirming the coordinates, they dispatch the base's only helicopter for a rescue mission. The jungle is close, the aircraft reaches the area swiftly. But the forest canopy is thick, searching for survivors is like looking for a needle in a haystack. Sunlight filters through the leaves, glinting off traces of blood on the ground. Meanwhile, Dan confides in Amy about his past. He started as a child actor, chasing fame early. When he met her, she was just a financial escape plan, but somehow, it turned into real love. But Amy doesn't respond. She sits still, silent, distant, as if her soul has drifted away. Suddenly, a swarm of crows bursts from the valley. Sonia, Kevin, and Zach all recognize the omen. In this forest, whenever the crows appear, someone dies. The three rush back toward camp. Sonia arrives first, just in time to see Dan one last time. The newlyweds are both dead. Zach arrives moments later, frozen in shock. Instinctively, Sonia accuses him, convinced he's the killer. Kevin soon appears, picks up Dan's hunting rifle, and shouts, "You two did this, you killed them." Meanwhile, the rescue helicopter finally reaches the crash zone, but surrounded by towering mountains and dense jungle, there's no sign of human life anywhere. Back on the ground, the three remaining survivors continue to distrust one another. Sonia defends herself, saying that if she and Zach were partners, she never would have exposed his theft of the bullets. Zach fires back, insisting that Kevin is the killer. Kevin, offended, argues that if he were the murderer, he wouldn't have saved Sonia on the mountain. Each of them has reasons to be suspected, and reasons to be innocent. Just as the shouting peaks, the sound of helicopter blades echoes above them. They look up in shock. Rescue has arrived, but the forest canopy is too thick, the fog too dense, the helicopter can't see them. Sonia and the others freeze in despair. As the sound fades away, they realize they've missed their one chance at survival. Zach regains his composure and suggests using smoke signals to draw attention. "This isn't the time to fight," he says firmly. Sonia, still wary, demands that Kevin drop his weapon. Reluctantly, he removes the last bullet and throws the hunting rifle into a puddle. With her survival instincts, Sonia suggests heading to higher ground. The smoke from burning leaves would be easier to spot from above. Kevin, however, refuses to go. He fears Sonia and Zach are in on this together, and that following them could be a death sentence. Even when Sonia points a gun at him, Kevin refuses to move. When rescue comes, he mutters, "Make sure you come back for me." Left with no choice, Sonia and Zach head up the mountain alone, but Zach, still injured from Kevin's torture, struggles with every step, pausing often to rest. During a break, Sonia finally opens up. After days of fear and survival, she realizes she's fallen for Zach. Zach gently pulls back and admits, "I'm married and I have a little girl." Sonia, embarrassed, quickly changes the subject, insisting that Kevin must be the real killer. Suddenly, a gunshot echoes from a distant ravine. Both freeze. The only rifle had been thrown away, so who fired it? Without hesitation, Zach decides to go back, saying this might be their only chance to uncover the killer. They rush to the ravine and find Kevin's corpse face down in the water, a bullet wound in his back, small fish nibbling at the flesh. As they lift him, they recoil in horror. Kevin's face is stripped to the bone. The sight is so grotesque it makes them gag. Now, only two survivors remain, Zach and Sonia, which can only mean a third person is still out there. Sonia suddenly recalls Amy's words, the mysterious man she saw in the woods. Maybe it wasn't a hallucination after all. Zach feels a chill crawl up his spine. Maybe the killer had been hiding in the cargo hold all along, which explains how the murders began from day one. As darkness falls, climbing back up is impossible. They decide to spend the night inside the plane, barricading the door with metal panels for safety. It won't stop the killer entirely, but at least it'll give them a warning. Eventually, they both drift into uneasy sleep. Meanwhile, a dark figure picks up the satellite phone and contacts the airline's supervisor, confirming he's the mole planted on the flight. On the 9th day, only Zach and Sonia remain alive. They wake early and plan to light a signal fire before the helicopter returns. But the weather turns against them. Thick fog smothers the mountain, a milky, impenetrable wall. Still, they search for the locator device. Seeing its light still blinking, Zach breathes easier. Surely the rescue team will return today. As they wait, Sonia strikes up a calm conversation, asking about Zach's family. To her surprise, his wife Claire is also an investigator with the bureau. Earlier, Claire, Zach's wife, had been assigned to Mexico to investigate the cause of the crash, but due to strict interference from local authorities, she was forced to return home empty-handed. Back home, Claire remembers the moment before Zach left. She had been deeply worried, but Zach reassured her again and again, "Just 5 days, I'll be back safe." But now, over a week has passed, and there's still no word from Zach. Determined, Claire decides to return to Mexico herself. She knows the chances of finding him alive are almost zero, but she refuses to do nothing. But things don't go as planned. The moment she crosses the border, a local police officer takes notice. sensing her mission, he orders her confined to a hotel, forbidding her to leave until further notice. Meanwhile, deep in the Mexican rainforest, the mountain fog begins to lift under the scorching sun. Suddenly, the roar of a lion echoes in the distance, startling Sonia. Zack reassures her it's probably just a wild animal passing by. He removes his socks, revealing a still healing wound on his toe. Sonia tells him to clean it properly, while she goes to collect dry branches for the fire. Zack insists on joining her, but the pain is too much. Sonia smiles and reassures him, I won't go farther than 5 meters. Moments later, Zack hears footsteps crunching on gravel through the fog. He can hear them clearly, but sees no one. Suddenly, Sonia is knocked unconscious by a blow from behind. A mysterious man picks up the pistol from the ground and turns around, wearing Carlos's mask. The man raises his gun and steps forward. Zack backs up to the cliff's edge, his voice trembling. We were all innocent. Why did you kill us? The man remains silent. He pulls the trigger, the bullet hitting Zack square in the chest, sending him plunging into the abyss. Then he turns. Sonia is awake, her eyes widen in horror as she stammers, Who are you? The man slowly approaches. Sonia backs away in panic, but before she can move, a gunshot rings out. We now arrive at the final episode of the series. The deadly werewolf game in the jungle is reaching its climax, with twist after twist no one could have predicted. Picking up from the previous episode, the last 2 survivors of the plane crash, Zack and Sonia, have also fallen victim to the masked killer. The next morning, the Mexican military dispatches helicopters back to the jungle to search again. At first, they find nothing unusual. Then, while flying over the highest peak, a soldier spots a blinking locator beacon. After circling back for a closer look, they finally see the wreckage deep in a canyon. The commander immediately reports it to headquarters. Within half an hour, the first rescue team arrives on the mountain and discovers a narrow path leading down to the crash site. Though the plane is badly mangled, there are still traces of human activity. The rescuers spread out to search for survivors. One soldier finds the cockpit hatch pried open, but the bags of white powder inside are long gone. Soon, they discover a clearing where 9 bodies lie neatly side by side. The stench of decay is overwhelming, but the team proceeds to bag the corpses for transport back to base. The commander concludes that at least one survivor may still be out there, and orders a wider search perimeter. Meanwhile, at the Mexican border, Claire, Zack's wife, finally receives word from her superiors. She's still forbidden from entering the rainforest, but she's allowed to travel to a nearby military base to await updates, since 9 bodies have been found, but none identified. The military calls in a forensic examiner to determine the causes of death and identify the victims. Without hesitation, Claire sets off immediately. At the edge of the rainforest, inside a makeshift military outpost, the 9 bodies are lined up in a storage tent, awaiting forensic inspection. A junior officer is tasked with investigating the crash, but since it's not their primary mission, most of them treat it like routine paperwork. What they don't realize is that the airline's supervisor, the same company behind the crash, is watching them through binoculars from afar. Shortly after, the forensic examiner arrives, but Cora, the airline's supervisor, intercepts her en route. Seeing that the examiner is unguarded, Cora draws her gun, aiming directly at the woman. At the same moment, inside the storage tent, a dagger suddenly slices through one of the body bags, and a shadowed figure emerges. It turns out one of the 9 corpses was a fake. The man walks to a mirror, revealing the face of Dr. Kevin. He shows no relief at being alive. Instead, he rushes toward the other bodies to examine them. Meanwhile, Cora infiltrates the base, posing as the forensic examiner and easily deceiving the guards. Facing the military officers, she acts calm and professional, requesting to work alone, though for safety, the commander assigns a soldier to accompany her. When Cora and the soldier enter the morgue tent, they're horrified to find that all the bodies have been cut open. As the soldier stares in confusion, Kevin suddenly emerges from the shadows and knocks him unconscious. Seeing Kevin, Cora bursts into relief and excitement. It turns out they've known each other all along and worked together on this elaborate scheme. Cora urges Kevin to leave immediately, but he says, wait a moment. It's revealed that all the flour hidden on the plane had already been stuffed inside the bodies beforehand. Unfortunately, at the same moment, Claire, Zack's wife, arrives at the military base. She insists that, whether her husband is alive or dead, she needs to see it with her own eyes. But she's one step too late. By then, Kevin has removed all the hidden powder from the corpses. Together, he and Cora drench the area in gasoline, and when the match is struck, the morgue erupts in flames. In seconds, all evidence is destroyed. No one will ever know who truly died, or who survived. Outside, Claire rushes toward the morgue, only to hear a massive explosion. Flames engulf the tent as soldiers scramble in panic to contain the blaze. Amid the chaos, Cora and Kevin escape by car. The troops, too busy fighting the fire, don't even notice the vehicle speeding away. Meanwhile, the search team deep in the rainforest continues their sweep. They find only a strange mask, and no other clues. Just as they're about to report back, a sharp-eyed observer suddenly spots a glimmer of light reflecting through the trees. No one could have imagined that Zach, who had been shot twice and thrown off a cliff, would somehow still be alive. A large tree branch had broken his fall, leaving him unconscious for one night. When he wakes, he hears the faint roar of helicopter blades. Zach grabs his sunglasses, using the sunlight reflection to signal for help, and miraculously, the rescue team spots him. Back at base, Claire anxiously waits as the commander receives the report. They found Zach alive. He's being rushed to a city hospital. Overcome with emotion, Claire bursts into tears and rushes to the hospital. The bullets missed his vitals, his worst injury being a fractured thigh from the fall. Zach's survival is nothing short of a miracle. Once stable, Zach tells the police everything. He reveals that the true killer was Kevin, since in the official passenger manifest, no one named Kevin ever existed. It's clear he had used a fake identity to board the flight. Zach adds another key detail: the airline company behind the crash was trafficking illegal powder, and arresting its supervisor would lead them straight to the truth. And indeed, Zach's prediction proves right. At that moment, Kevin and Cora are planning their next move. The powder has been smuggled out of the jungle, and every witness is dead. Kevin smirks confidently, believing the police will never find a trace. What he doesn't know is that Zach is alive, and he has already exposed everything, from Kevin murdering the captain to silence him, to sabotaging the signal transmitter to delay rescue. Kevin also poisoned Davies, killed the wrestler Carlos, Lisa, and even the newlyweds Amy and Dan, all to erase suspicion and claim the entire shipment for himself. And the one who had been using the satellite phone all along was, of course, Kevin. He not only framed Zach, turning him into the prime suspect, but also stayed in constant contact with Cora. Without that coordination, their perfect escape plan could never have worked so flawlessly. Kevin is immensely proud of his brilliance. Earlier, he had stolen Davies' heart medication, drugs containing receptor blockers that could slow the heartbeat and lower blood pressure. Before the rescue team arrived, he swallowed a heavy dose, pushing his body into a death-like state. Combined with the stench of nearby corpses, Kevin successfully faked his death. Truly, Kevin was a master of deception. After murdering the newlyweds Amy and Dan, only 3 survivors remained. Naturally, Kevin became the main suspect. To mislead Zach, he dressed Dan's corpse in his own clothes and buried the man's face in water, making it appear as if Kevin himself were dead. Earlier, Kevin had dropped a single bullet on purpose, to set up a later misdirection. He ignited gunpowder, making Zach and Sonia believe shots were fired. When they arrived and saw a body wearing Kevin's clothes, Sonia naturally assumed he was dead. The face, eaten away by fish, made identification impossible, allowing Kevin to walk free of suspicion. Later, when Claire mentioned that all the bodies at the morgue had been cut open, Zach instantly pieced everything together. He realized that the powder had been hidden inside the corpses. That was the real reason Kevin killed everyone, to hide the smuggled cargo under the military's nose. Once preparations were complete, Kevin ordered the powder loaded onto a plane, but when he returned, Cora complained of feeling unwell. Kevin smirked coldly and admitted he'd mixed poisonous mushrooms into her breakfast. The reason was simple: the pilot had once sent Cora a sentimental video, clearly proving an affair between them. Ironically, the poor pilot became the biggest victim of betrayal, murdered to silence him after being used as a pawn in Kevin's smuggling game. Kevin never forgave Cora, the woman who had betrayed him. After poisoning her, he boarded a small plane to flee. Just then, Zach and the police arrived. Seeing Zach alive and well, Kevin snapped in fury and gunned the throttle to take off. Zach, refusing to give up, fired repeatedly, but only managed to hit the fuselage. Kevin grins triumphantly, certain he's won, but suddenly, the control panel blares a warning: Zach's bullet had punctured the fuel tank. Once again, the plane flies over the same jungle canyon where the tragedy began, and it seems history is about to repeat itself. And that concludes the entire story of 9 bodies in a Mexican morgue. It's truly a rare gem of a thriller, tying up every loose end. Even small details like Davies' pill bottle are cleverly resolved. Of course, many viewers had already guessed the hidden killer midway through. It seems that in real life, there are plenty of natural detectives out there, they just need the right mystery to prove it. And that's a wrap for today's movie. Thanks for watching, see you all in the next recap.